Well, welcome. This is the Wednesday, March 6th, 2013 Planning Commission meeting. I would like roll call.
Planning Commissioner Astorian.
Here.
Here.
Planning Commissioner Shi.
Here. Here.
Chairperson.
Here. May I have the report regarding the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Wednesday, February 27th, 2013, on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the city's website.
Right, thank you. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Usain, would you like to lead us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I would like to turn the meeting over to staff for the election of a chairperson and a chairperson pro tem.
It is time to elect a new chairperson. First, I'll ask for opening the nomination process. Once you ask for a nomination, there's no need for a second. After the nominations have been received, then we'll then call for a vote on the first nomination. If a majority vote is received, then a new chairperson is elected. If not, then staff will repeat the voting process for a second nomination until a new chairperson is elected. And so do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Yesayan.
We have a nomination for Mr. Yesayan. Are there any other nominations? So we have a nomination received. Nominations are now closed. Commissioner Yesayan is nominated for chairperson. Roll call, please.
Planning Commissioner.
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Chairperson Lang.
Aye.
Abstain.
How to vote for yourself?
I can.
Stay.
Okay, aye.
Aye.
We'll make it unanimous.
So,
Congratulations to our new chairperson.
There you go. There's a passing of the gavel right here.
Yes.
Right.
We get to give you,
There you go.
I'll roll my chair with me.
All right. Oh,
Passing of the gavel.
Get the Olmsted Oak.
yeah, we keep our possessions.
We'll keep doing.
First section is chair at some point.
Seems to be a chair moving night.
I think.
All right, here's your cheat sheet.
Slight pause.
Here's this for that.
We have a cheat sheet for you because your first action will be then
Wow.
nomination of a chairperson.
See what happens when you miss a meeting, Eric?
Pro tem.
Way to start the year off. Oh, yeah. All right.
You're going to start the second quarter off of it.
There you go.
The year has started
So
off.
you guys want me to?
You may want to take nominations for the chair pro tem.
Okay, this is after the actual case.
We want this now.
Okay, we're gonna do election for the chair pro tem now. Okay.
You might want to ask for nominations for the chair pro tem.
So any nominations for the chair pro tem?
Mr. Chair, I nominate Commissioner Astorian.
Okay. Do we don't need a second?
No, you don't. And just a second, do you have any other nominations?
Any other nominations? All right.
Then you may want to call for a roll call.
Roll call, please. A little nervous doing that.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Planning Commissioner.
I'm not going to abstain. Yes.
All right. So approval of minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes of February 20th, regular meeting.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
yes.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Yeah. Do we have any oral communication? I don't see any cards. So next item, zoning appeals. We have variance case PVAR 12-19-971. Do we have a staff report for that? It's a continued variance case from last meeting.
Right, this is a continued case and the hearing was closed. If you want a staff report, we can provide a brief overview, but if everybody was here previously except for Ms. Giusayan, so if you viewed the hearing item, you may participate if you want to reconsider an action on the item.
Okay, I have viewed the video. So we don't open up the hearing anymore at all, so we're just going to do a discussion and then vote on it?
That's correct.
Okay. So is there anything else you guys would like to discuss?
I think we all expressed our opinions. I think we're waiting on your opinion.
Okay.
Because you're the deciding vote.
All right.
Have nothing to add?
And I guess I'm appropriately sat right in the middle of this. Well, I have viewed the video, and I did read through the all the information that we've been handed. And I do first want to apologize that I wasn't here last time, so you guys have to come here again. I think, first off, I do support it. I do support your variance. And I support it because it is a historical home, but you have demonstrated that this is not a very bulky use of the addition. And I think you could see it in the pictures. I think the findings that Mr. Osorian made at the last meeting were justified, and I made the same findings as well in my review of it. And I thought that you had a lot of neighbors in support of the project was a very good thing. And I believe the only opposition was a phone call or two. And I think there's a lot of support for it, which was really good, and especially that the Homeowners Association did not say anything about it, which was also a big deal. It's also hidden from the street, and I think that's also a good thing. One last point I will mention is that we use these variance cases. I look at them in terms of when we have stuff by the book, which is the FAR ratios and other things we look at to make sure we don't do any, we go beyond our permission of what we're actually building. But there's the variance process we do have in order to evaluate cases like this, and I think this is appropriate for this setting. So
I'm ready to make a
with
motion.
that, do you have a second?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I move that upon review and consideration of all materials and exhibits of the current record relative to variance case number PVAR 1219971, located at 1675 Ard Evian Avenue, and after having conducted an appeal hearing on said matter, that the Planning Commission hereby reverses the Planning Hearing Officer's decision and approves said variance case number PVAR 1219971 in accordance with the revised findings and conditions. I think this report was supposed to say A, B, C, D, not C, D, C, E. Okay, so the four findings of the A, B, C, D, and conditions of approval 1 through 4.
Second.
Great. Roll call.
Astorian,
Yes.
Lee,
Aye.
No.
Landry,
No.
and Chairperson Desai.
Aye. Okay, next item. New business parking reduction permit case number PPRP 122790. Location is 1113 South Central Avenue. Do I need to read the project description?
Yes, please.
Okay. Project description: to change the use from a medical lab to a children's indoor playground without providing 11 additional parking spaces in the C3 Commercial Service Zone, Hike District 1 Zone, described as portion of Lot 17, Watts Subdivision. A parking reduction permit is required due to the change in use from a medical lab without patient visitation to a children's indoor playground use, which requires an additional 11 parking spaces that cannot be provided on site. We have a staff report. Great.
What I'll do is I'll go over just the brief description of the property, and then I'm assuming after that, the applicant will present their arguments, and then staff will discuss the reasoning or the rationale as to why the parking reduction was denied.
Great.
So in terms of the location, as you stated, it's located at 1113 South Central Avenue. It's on the southwest corner of Central Avenue and Chevy Chase. It's an 8-tenant commercial multi-tenant center with 2 residential units located on the northwest side of the property. The shopping center was built in 1960, and there are 69 on-site parking spaces which serve the commercial tenants. The residential have their own private attached garages. The types of uses on site include retail, medical, office, dental office. There's a financial institution at the corner, and there is a billiards establishment there.
Okay.
The location of the subject is next to or in between a retail store, I believe it's a gun shop, and there is a billiards right next to it. So it's right in between those two uses. And the commercial uses range from approximately 1140 square feet to 5,500 square feet. And there is access to the parking lot both from Chevy Chase and Central Avenue. That concludes my presentation in terms of the description of the property, and I will go into the further discussion as to the rationale further in the hearing. If there are any questions for staff, I'm available.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Lee?
Yes, I have, in your report, and also in Appellant's report, it says that they have some additional facts that you may not have considered. Did you receive any reports or data or any additional studies on this case?
No, I have not, and the hearing officer who heard the case is not either.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, what's the total RBA, the rentable building area for the whole project?
For the whole project, I don't have that number in front
I
of
was
me.
just trying to add it up.
I would. I'll look at the site plan and.
I know you have 63 parking spaces.
69.
69. 32.
Well, the units. Look at it. Let me get a calculator. I have it right here. Well, this one doesn't work. The building area is 21,735 square feet. And the lot area is 54,841 square feet.
And in that zone, what's the requirement for medical to park?
If it has patient visitation, it would be 5 per thousand. If it's without patient visitation, it would be 2.7 per thousand.
And the child care will fall into the school category?
No, it's a children's indoor playground. It has its own category. So it would be the 10 per thousand.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? I do have a question. What is this going to be used for? Is this a daycare center?
No,
That the playground is, or
Based on what the applicant or how they've described the project, it would be basically a children's indoor playground, which they would cater to, and this is in the report, children's ages 2 to 12, operating between open Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., hosting parties, 2 parties per day. So I'm assuming children's parties, whatever that may be.
okay.
And potentially they would bring catered food, maybe pizza of the sort. If I'm mistaken, they can correct me, but that's my understanding. So they would, again...
So it's not where I mean, the adults don't just leave the kids and then go and then come back.
Correct. It would, I guess, depending on the parent,
Right.
but I'm assuming if it's a small child,
Right.
the parent would stay and until the
I
function
mean, I guess
concludes.
that would sort of help me in my decision making. If how the parents, do they actually stay there or not, or is it act more like the children come and there's just a couple parents who are supervising, or if it's a bigger deal than that?
Again, I don't know how they envision it, but
Okay.
based on what was heard at the hearing and public testimony received from the applicant's representative, they stated a maximum of 30 children and parents per party, and they stated that some parents would drop off their children while others would carpool to the party.
Okay. All right, great. Do we have any other questions before we hear from the applicant? No? Okay. Applicant?
My name is Rafi Nazarian. I'm an architect. I'm helping my clients actually in this project for a long time.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your full name?
There you go.
Yes, sorry. My name is Rafi Nazarian,
Okay.
and I'm an architect of the project. And I helped my clients on this project for a few years now, because the billiard establishment next door belongs to them also. Actually, this was part of the whole building, which was medical lab, used to be a medical lab. We went through the hearing process, we got approval for the billiard establishment. We had physically 15 parking spaces for that whole building. We 5,500, which is now existing billiard establishment. It's operating from 6 to 12. So during the day, the establishment is totally closed. And the remaining 1,500 square feet, which was useless, we tried to somehow utilize that and make something out of that, because we didn't want anyone else to come and create parking problems, any other business. So that's why we kept the space. We never leased it out to someone else. And the best idea came to us, which for kids, for small parties, like see people living in apartment buildings, they don't have big living room or space. They want to have little birthday parties for children. Doesn't have to be at least, 30 people. It can be less, but that's the maximum it can fit in there. We do not intend to operate the business during the day, never, because we can't. During the evening, we can't because we don't have enough staff. We don't want to work 20 hours a day. Then, besides that, that would damage the business next door, which is a main business in that building, billiard establishment. So that's why we kept this very quiet. And this idea, we never had any opportunity before or during hearing about the points, Mrs. Lawler, which is very, very important for us and helpful. We never thought about that during the week, during the day, kids are in school, and barely people will do parties because it's not comfortable for them, time-wise. We didn't know that. We didn't consider that. So by your help, we came up to this point, like, we can't do business like that. So we changed the days and hours of operations from Friday to Saturday. So during the week, we're not going to use that establishment at all, which won't be any problem for any neighbors or businesses around. I gathered some petitions from the neighbors. I can hand it to you. So everybody signed, especially people next door, and the businesses, which is medical office and dental office. Those are those businesses which take a lot of parking spots. In fact, every time I started the parking during the last 2 weeks, during the day, especially Friday, never you will see the parking lot full. It's always 70% or 60% occupied. It's always open. And so, based on the facts, when we heard about that after the hearing, And it was shocking, actually, news for us, because also the staff approved this project. Staff studied the project, approved the project, and we were kind of surprised. But we didn't talk about that days of operations, which is not comfortable for kids, especially when schools are open. So we changed that schedule. Now we are offering days of operations Friday, Saturday, and Sunday only. The Fridays, next door medical office, they do not give patients so many appointments. They do just administrative work themselves most of the time. And I don't see any problem in Saturday and Sundays because almost everybody is closed besides a couple of businesses. And we're just trying to utilize the space somehow and do that. That's not a banquet hall. That's not a, disco club, anything. It's just very small business for kids, especially people living around apartment buildings. Most of the time they can walk. I talked to some people around, and they said, I wanted them to sign the petition. They said, "You don't understand this, but that's a good idea to have that space next to us because we do little parties, baby showers. We can use this space." And I can hand you the.
Yeah, if you're handing this to us, you're not going to get it back. So this is you're handing it to public records. So
That's all the petitions and people signed. Businesses in the shopping center.
These are all the neighbors?
Yes, neighbors, some clients,
The dentist?
dentist, and medical office specialists.
Medical office.
They attach the business card to that. So that's the main business. Takes a lot of parking. The medical office.
Are you done with your?
I'm actually. I'm asking. I can't say I'm begging, but this is not crucial because I really, honestly studied the parking. Never used a parking lot in 2004. Only to do a parking analysis, but I think every time I go there, parking. Every hour, every 2 hours, parking lot is 40-50% occupied. The most, peak time. Saturday, Sunday, it's like 5 or 6 parks. My cars parked. That's the main days of our business now.
So I heard that you're no longer asking for weekday use. But
No,
for
not at all. No.
from just Friday and Saturday.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
If Friday is a deal breaker, we can avoid Friday. But I don't see any problem with the Fridays too because medical and dental office, they don't give appointments to patients that much.
What are the hours you're proposing for Friday, Saturday?
11 to 5. That's exactly the time when billiard establishment is closed. And we have physically 15 parking spots
And what was the original proposal you had
the whole week.
the whole week, from Monday to Sunday?
Monday to Sunday. Not Monday, from Tuesday to Sunday. Monday was off.
Okay.
Mr. Little, this is new evidence, right? You were not aware that this thing
No, that's
was-
new information.
When I saw your bewildered face, I
I
thought
was
maybe...
in shock.
The same way we were shocked when we saw staff report, when we saw staff support, and then even, I'm sorry to say that, but even during the hearing, we never discussed this. Then we were so happy it's approved. Then you see this letter says, that's the point, really. But that time during the day, kids are in school. Who's going to do the party? I wish I had that opportunity before the hearing.
Yeah.
We could adjust this whole timing.
So you don't even think you're going to have much use in the weekday, even if you are open. That's what you're saying.
You're
Yeah.
not going to have any use.
Yeah.
Any use?
Because
No,
you're
we
gonna
don't
be
need
all
any
in
use
school.
because the same staff say people going to work in billiard establishment. They're not going to
Right.
work 20 hours a day.
Okay.
You can't hire any other people.
So pretty much all the neighbors.
I have
We have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Lee?
I don't know. Have you read this report, our staff? And it really asks. I think it's your due diligence to come up with studies. You've been telling us that you've been there every hour and you've done the studies. but it's really is what, you need to put that in some sort of a organized report format for our staff, for us, to really take a look at that and, to consider that. Because right now it's just, your verbal presentation of, believe me, this is what it is, it doesn't really help us. So I think, for your own good, I think you need to come up with some sort of a, report that could help us to understand your situation.
A petition is not enough. People, witnesses, business, neighbors, people who may complain. In fact, if there is parking problem, they signed strongly.
Okay, I think he was just making a point.
Right.
So,
So
we're not going to have a back and forth. here.
Right.
So if you, I think you're done with your testimony.
submit something if you
Is
need.
he up with his time?
No, he still has more time if he
Okay.
wants to
He
add
has
more,
numerous.
but if you're already deliberating, then he doesn't have anything to add. You don't have to
Well,
take additional information.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ms. Stoddard, go ahead.
Well, I do have additional information that may be germane to this. It wasn't available at the time the staff report was written. Right next door to this in the banquet hall, or not the banquet hall, the billiard establishment that he's talking about. After this, the daycare facility, the parking reduction was denied. He had a alcohol permit that was processed for the billiard hall and the billiard establishment. That was approved. As he mentioned, that is his main business on the site. ABC called me. Apparently, he applied for the wrong permit for the billiard establishment. He applied as a bona fide food establishment, as a restaurant. This is not a restaurant. It is a banquet hall, and that is the wrong permit that he applied for. What he needs to apply for has a type 42. It's a restriction. Only adults, no children. And it's ABC, it's a state law that you cannot use the same establishment with any kind of anything related to children at the same establishment. It has to be physically separated. So it's a little bit out of order because it was denied, and then he appealed it, and subsequent to that, he actually had his alcohol permit approved. They were both processing simultaneously. But he does share facilities. If you take a look at the daycare facility or the party facility that he's proposing, he uses the same bathrooms that would be used for the billiard establishment. And it's an ABC law that he would not be able to use those same. He would have to physically separate the structures. And also, with an indoor play place, if it's right next to where it's an adults only alcohol serving use, it may not be permitted by ABC. So if he's saying his main use is the billiard establishment with an alcohol permit, he may wish to pursue that because approving a child, if he puts a child daycare in there, it would nullify his potential to get an ABC permit. So I'm not saying don't approve an indoor playground, but he needs to understand, and I don't know if he does, that it will nullify his ability to get his alcohol permit for a separate business. And the way it's designed now, it would need to be redesigned. Even if we were to approve a child play place, it would have to be physically separated. It would have to have its own bathrooms. It couldn't have a shared door. It would have to be completely separate facility. So I just wanted to let you know that.
What exactly are they sharing? with
They're
this
sharing a
proposal?
restroom facility and a door to the rear of the structure.
Okay.
So they'll be coming in, their main entrance to
So they
the
have to
party
go
play
through
place
the-
from the back would be walking essentially through the bar or the billiard establishment.
Well,
That's
thank
not
you.
allowed. So I just wanted to, there's some issues going on with ABC. We did not know that at the time the report was written, but I think it may be germane to your decisions, because I know this is related to parking reduction permit, and we've kept all the decisions on the parking reduction permit, but there is a bigger picture here that I just wanted you to understand what it is. I don't know that the applicant fully understands it. So in the interest of having full information, I wanted you to be aware of that.
I have a question. The ownership of the billiards and the childcare, are they same or different ownership?
Well, my understanding, I don't know who the ownership is, but the facility itself are joined. They're not separate establishments. They have doors that open to each other. They share restroom facilities. There's a shared component to it. So I know that ABC has already recommended that they apply for a different permit to actually reflect what they want to do on the billiard establishment. I realize it's not the indoor play place, but there is a conflict with the ABC law. That's not our law, but it has real implications in terms of if he puts in a child play facility, it may injure his ability to get an alcohol permit through the state and through us, because we would have to reevaluate it also.
I have a,
So,
Mr. Historian, you have a question?
Go ahead. I think you're going to...
Mr. Shades says seniority.
I just, this is data overload. That's not why we're here. So we have, I don't know what the options are, but I appreciate the data you're giving me, plus we've also received some new information this evening, and things have changed, so the whole playing field's changed. It almost nullifies our reason to be here.
Right.
So whatever the options are for them to kind of step back, figure out what they're really doing in what order, and I would recommend, as I think everybody sitting up here would, you must have a detailed, documented study of the parking. It can't be general. The things that you stated tonight would be great if they were documented as far as how many parking spaces there are, what the hours of business are, what the traffic flow is. If you documented that, you're partway there. But beyond that, too many things have come in tonight that make it impossible for me to even think about what this request is. And I would suggest that whatever staff recommends they need to do to step back and regroup, that would be the best approach.
Mr. Historian?
If I may, 3 different places, very clearly in the staff report, it states that they wanted documentation from you for the parking study. And I believe if that was done, it could have helped your case. But having said that, I mean, that is what I'm looking for. I mean, if I were to just consider what you have in front of us right now, I would be leaning towards a denial. But I don't want to do that because you may have an opportunity to actually show that in your parking study that it is possible for you to achieve what you want to achieve, especially with the second new revelation, which is the weekend operation versus the entire week operation. I want to follow this with a question from the city attorney. Now, I know that the parking reduction is in front of us, and some new evidence was just introduced as far as the ABC and so forth. But that's at their own peril. In other words, if they were to come out here and do a baby playing area or whatever it's called, ABC finds out about it, it's going to yank that license away from them. I mean, they should be aware of it, and I think the staff is doing them a favor explaining to them why they should look into it a little bit deeper. Even more reason why, in my opinion, if you choose to, you should really revisit this whole thing again and provide what we really need to make a decision. That's my point.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I mean, I think this case, because of the new findings, new revelation, I think has to be remanded back to the staff for them to review this case before it comes back to us.
Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, you have several options. You could continue this matter. You could approve it or disapprove it. And those are really your options for tonight.
How about sending it back to the staff?
You could remand it.
You're right.
Yeah, for further investigation and report, and that's another option.
But legally, what Mr. Historian said about the ABC coming into requirement here, does that really?
It's not relevant. It's ancillary information
Right.
to your consideration.
Because
of the
that's
Parking
a
Commission
different
permit.
authority who will do their job to maybe
It's
hopefully.
certainly useful information that perhaps puts the applicant under a due diligence duty to follow
Okay.
through. But in terms of your review of the permit itself, it's not exactly relevant to standards for granting a parking reduction permit.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if it's okay with other commissioners, I'd like to make the motion to remand this case back to the staff on basis of two things. That one is the hours of operation, which is a new data, new proposal that's before us, and also what Commissioner Estrogens and Commissioner Schiss have indicated, give the appellant opportunity to come up with the comprehensive report for the staff to reconsider. So I'd like to make motion to remand it back to the staff.
I'd like to second, and I'd like to comment.
Okay.
Thank you. I make that second on the condition that there are official studies, because I believe that when we remand it to staff, that's putting more time and energy on them, and if we aren't going to require that to bring it back here, it needs to have, for us to reconsider it, it has to have the staff report and the application reflect the changes in operation, the hours of operation, and there needs to be some parking studies.
Mr. Chair, forgive the parochial question
Sure.
here. What's the difference between continuing the case practically and remanding it? What's the practical implications?
I think if we remand it, the applicant's probably going to have to pay for renoticing, and I'm not sure that this did it attract a lot of public comment the first time it went. So
How much is that
That's a lot.
to do renoticing?
Yeah, you have to get a
you
new,
know, Milka,
about $600.
Yeah, but just noticing, probably no more than $500 because it's not the application.
And they have
Yeah,
to
and
play
I'm
for
not-
staff time again?
well, I don't know that the staff time's going to be that different.
Okay.
Whether it's remanded or continued. I don't think that you can do a conditional remanding. I mean, I understand your point, and if you, it sounds like you kind of want to give the applicant a chance to produce some studies, and maybe then you would hear it. But if they couldn't, then you'd remand it. Is that?
Yeah, I'll be very honest
Not
with
sure
you.
if I'm interpreting that correctly.
And that's why I wanted the difference, the nuances. In my opinion, they can achieve what they want to achieve and show us what they have by continuing the case and not costing a small business a bunch of money. I mean, if that's okay with you all, we can ask the motion maker to make,
Or we can vote it down.
I actually have a question before. And I'm kind of backing up. The parking requirements that you guys have in the report, does this apply, is this citywide, or is this sort of downtown specific at all?
No, this applies to all children's indoor playground in the
Citywide.
city.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm just backing up a little bit. I want to make a comment. I just find it a little bit interesting that we, in the downtown area, and I consider this downtown because I walk around that area where they're proposing this all the time. And there's people walking, there's kids walking, there's families walking, much more heavily than any other place in Glendale outside of that area. And we give really strong exceptions to create entertainment zones with big parking reductions. We're having a new Nordstrom being built just like 10 blocks up with zero parking added to it. It's using existing parking. And we created a Maryland location with 5,000 square feet. I think under that, it's exempted, all parking. And I find it a little bit interesting that we really push a lot of these businesses who are in just as much of a walkable, very close to homes location, much stricter standards, and I find that a little bit curious, and if it justifies for something like this to apply the same exact standards as we do in every part of the other city, and if we should maybe make an exception to something like this in a downtown sort of area. Yeah.
Well, since we have a motion, I'd like to comment on that motion.
Okay.
The motion is that we were going to remand it, and I seconded it. I can pull my second, and it can die for lack of a second.
Would you like to do that?
That's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
And if I may, with all due respect to the first motion maker, to make a motion to continue this case so they would not have to go out and spend the money and instead perhaps use that money towards their traffic study money.
Okay. Do we have a motion for that?
But he just made one.
I will second it.
Okay, so you made the motion.
But do we still have the condition that they must come back with a documented professional study. They have an outline right here in the staff report.
Correct.
Things they need to look at, the counting of the spaces, the traffic flow, that all of those things, it's right there for them, but it needs to be documented, because then that way we can make that decision. Generalizations are good when you're talking to somebody and say, I saw this, and I think this will happen, but if we have something documented, then we can go, okay, this is what happens. Happens this many days a week, happens during these hours.
And I would like to say that my second has the conditions that were made on the first one that I was told that a remanding could not have any conditions on it.
And what exactly does this traffic study, how do you define
The city has a
reputed?
definition of it, so they would have to follow the city's recommendations and requirements for a traffic study.
Can you just state very briefly what that?
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
You know, I have a problem with this case because, to begin with, if you look at the drawing, there are 17 spaces short to begin with.
Right.
And then they're asking for 11 more spaces of a parking reduction. You know, and you know, we sometimes, you know, look at cases, case by case, to grant variances and reduction permits and so on. You know, that are on the borderlines and so on. This is a, you know, there's a guideline.
Sure.
And I think this is a total, you know, unless we have very comprehensive, that could tell us. I mean, it's not up on us to try to understand this thing here. It's burden is on them to get us the report so that we can take a look at that. You know, you have a 17 minus to start with, and then you have 11 more that you're asking for. What are we looking at? I think we need to see that.
So we have a motion and a second, and we're ready to continue. We're ready to do roll call for this. Yes, to continue it to the dates or. I'm sorry.
To the next meeting?
Would that give enough?
Chair.
Would that give enough time to do a traffic study?
No.
Chair, members
Yes.
of the Planning Commission, if I might interrupt, perhaps you want to query the applicant to see how much time they might need, given the discussion that the Commission's had thus far, the information that's in the report, to pull together the information that it appears the Planning Commission needs in order to reconsider this matter at a continued hearing.
What? How much time do
Couple of
you?
weeks, 2 weeks.
So do you think you can come back in our next
Actually,
meeting, which is?
I had kind of report, but I didn't put it together because I want to, first of all, clarify something.
Well,
Mr.
we're
Lake.
not going to clarify. We're just, if you can answer this question, do you think you'll have enough time to
2
bring
weeks.
the
It would be
report
fine.
in 2 weeks?
Well, we would also need time to review it.
So
I
is-
would suggest no sooner than 1 month
Yeah,
that
okay,
he
I
return.
I agree.
Then that's a good idea. So we'll do it in at least a month away from now.
We have a meeting that's on April 3rd, and you also have a meeting that's April 17th.
Okay.
So
So
if you
if-
wanted to pick one of those days. If you wanted to pick a date in May, we have May 1st.
I think April,
Sooner
the
better.
sooner the better. So April 3rd.
Mr. Chair, just for reference purpose, if you want to have a full commission, I will not be able to come to
April
April
3rd.
April, both hearings.
Both meetings?
Are being Korea, yes.
Okay.
And May 1st, I would suggest
May
as
1st
the
is
earliest
okay.
date when
May
you might
1st.
have a full
In another
commission.
month.
So
I
if you have
mean,
the
with
full
the
commission-
other commissioners, what do you guys feel as far as April or May?
I think the longer, in spite of them wanting to make it short, I understand they want to get there, but as far as I'm concerned, if the report's not comprehensive, and I'm not saying it needs to be professional, I think there's an outline here that tells them the categories to look at and make the counts, and if you
So
do that,
we'll-
I'm good with it, but if that's not going to be that way, it needs to take what it needs to take.
So we'll do May.
That works for me.
Okay. So let's do the May meeting.
So May 1st.
Yeah, that's fine. And all right.
So you want to vote?
The roll call.
So the meeting will be, this project will be continued to May 1st. Without further notice.
With the condition for the applicant to produce a report following the guidelines for the traffic study.
And to propose the correct times, hours, and dates of operation.
Hours of operation.
Roll call.
Planning Commissioners Astorian.
Yes.
Lee.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Landrigan,
No.
Chairperson Yasayan.
Aye.
So who's going to second the motion moved by Planning Commissioner Estes?
I did.
Moved by Mr. Story and second by Ms. Landrigan.
Plot thickens.
No.
Second, I say no.
No, she can, yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
Okay, that's okay.
I don't think there's any reason.
Okay.
Or is that good? Okay, and I would really encourage staff to really help the applicant out, especially since they're a small business and given what I said earlier.
Well,
I think
staff did actually when he obtained the decision letter and he contacted me. I advised him to have a parking demand study prepared because he asked me how can I
I believe you. I mean,
how can I get the planning
No,
commission
I agree.
to focus in on what's really going on out there. I said, please produce a parking demand study and have,
Sure.
you know, if he wants to do it himself, he can certainly do it. If all he has to do is, I suggested morning.
so we'll just
Lunch
we'll
and
make sure
evening.
they do it right
Do a
before
parking
they
count.
come to the May meeting. Great, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So our next item, Planning Department updates.
I will just say regarding helping that business out, another thing that Ms. Toledo did was to try to produce a parking demand study of her own using the ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineers, Parking Generation Handbook. Unfortunately, that's not a very well-developed set of data compared to the trip generation handbook that they have. And so it just didn't, we tried putting together some numbers, and they just didn't make sense. So I just want to give, Milka credit for having done that as well.
Yeah, I
Attempted that.
And to be very honest, Mr. Foy, I mean, from the way that the report is put together and is put together quite well, I mean, there is 3 or 4 succinctly spoken areas of it that, look, we need the parking the parking study. So I believe you.
Be careful what
I
we're
think
discussing.
she did a good job.
What's that? Yeah.
Just
Okay.
need to be
So we're
careful
not
what we
going to
discuss.
discuss this during this time. We'll wait until the May meeting.
Okay, and the other,
More discussion.
just as an update, on March 20th, we do have an appeal at 1515 South Glendale that will be on the agenda.
Okay.
And then there's also a community meeting that we have for the housing element, and that's scheduled for Tuesday, March 26th. It'll be next door in room 105, MSB 105, from noon to 2 p.m. if anybody's interested in attending that.
Right. And I do see a new individual sitting next to Jillian, or Ms. Van Wyden.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Sitting to my left is Yvette Nukian. She is a deputy city attorney and presently in charge of our code enforcement prosecution wing of the city attorney's office, certainly with quite a background in land use and planning issues as it relates to code enforcement. And so she'll be joining me here.
I didn't get her name.
Yvette Nukian.
Yvette Nukin?
Nukian.
Great. Well, welcome.
So it's a pleasure to have her here with me, and on other occasions, Bobby Aldesco will be joining us, so we'll have a full complement of lawyers to ensure that you have coverage.
Even better.
Even better, yes. So I
Great.
just wanted to introduce her formally to all of you. Thank you so much.
You might even have a case here now with the dual news, conflicting news.
Any other updates? Commissioner comments? No? I have a comment. I would really like to look into, as we're doing the South Glendale Community Plan, and really look into these parking issues, especially in the downtown area. We have a downtown area laid out, but I think it's bigger than that. A lot of these areas are very walkable, and the same parking standards we apply to a lot of other parts of the city should not apply for these areas as well. And I'm not sure when we could look at this the most appropriate time, but this is something I would feel very strongly that we look at it, because we've had several cases that have come up in the last 2 years in that sort of general area, and they've dealt with the same issue. And I think it would be helpful to have better guidelines in the future. Thanks. And if we don't have anything
I'll
else,
make a comment to
Yeah.
that. I guess my thought about that is, I don't know what it is. And parking is a significant issue throughout this community. We've had consultants at great cost come and give us their thoughts on what should be done and how we should do it. And I understand the concern about treating people fairly, but I would need to know what it is as far as what we're going to discuss about parking, and I don't think it's something, we need to give them clarity about what they're going to bring back to us. Just say that, just to study parking differences between one part of the city and the other isn't enough for me. That's just my...
I think once there's a South Glendale community plan that's being developed, and that is probably going to be part of it. And I'm sure
I think that's
it's
a good
gonna
place
be-
for it to be.
That's a good
Right.
place for it.
and so we'll probably be seeing a lot more of that in the future.
May I make a suggestion? I think that's a good idea. May I make a suggestion? We did have an extensive mobility plan for the downtown area. I think it behooves us, so every commissioner here has a copy of that mobility plan, because it gives us an idea of how these highly paid consultants have consulted us, and how over and over and over and over and over again they have said that really, if you build parkings, you're creating problems, especially with the downtown area. If we want to help folks walk and live in downtown, parking is not going to be the issue. And there, I mean, these, I've read it in detail, and I think I'd love to be able to do it again, and I think it'll be great for all of us to familiarize ourselves with that, the concept of the mobility study, because it will, whether we like it or not, kind of go outside of its area. These are very close by areas. Glendale is not a city. I mean, right now the way that the downtown is being put together with the downtown specific plan, town center, and the surrounding areas, this is going to be a tremendously walkable city. So,
Great. Thanks. Anything else?
thank you.
Move that we adjourn.
Great. We're adjourned. Thanks, guys.